Marilyn Monroe was the first actress to prove that nudity does not destroy a career, it can even help a career.
And then Jane Mansfield was right behind her.
Then Mamie Van Doren.
That's Anne Margaret, and she's naked.
Everybody's naked, and they're touching each other.
They decided to allow nudity in movies.
You guys doing all right?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm in Chicago. Where are you guys at?
Chicago. I'm in Glencoe.
Oh, so you're local.
I'm a local guy.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, there we go. That's the perfect connection right off the bat. I'll tell you one thing, Danny. I knew about Mr. Skin, the site, for years and stuff. I used to remember you doing a hit on ESPN 1000 too, back in the I imagine you, like, the most startling thing from the documentaries, I imagine you just like this older man, probably like bald headed and stuff. And here I see a documentary, I'm like, man, it blew me away. You're this like executive looking guy versus what I could imagine you for years.
a lot of people thought I lived in my mom's basement. So that's
Well, I'm going to jump into it. What a fascinating documentary. That's just something, like, I loved how you guys went decade by decade and really broke it down. Like, this is a true documentary in itself. First thing that kind of stood out to me, how do you guys compile a list of the great people you guys interviewed throughout that had such an influence on cinema and the subject matter? How did you go about the list of who do you want to get to kind of get on these interviews, and how did you get them? I was fascinated by that aspect because you got some really prominent figures over the years and that really made nudity in cinema what it is.
it's kind of twofold. I mean, like Jim and our executive producer, Paul, and myself, and Christine, our supervising producer, we first break down what movies we need to cover. What are the seminal films we can't leave out?
Which, by the way, wasn't easy to narrow down. By the way,
no, not easy at all. We have walls of cards, and what movies are we going to cover that we can't leave out? And this is the natural. You got to do Last Tango in Paris, and you've got to do Fast Times at Ridgemont. Yeah, there's the movies you can't leave out, and then we sort of go, well, now who can we interview from those movies? And several of them are not alive anymore. Certainly, when you go back to the early days. So I think Mamie Van Doren was maybe our oldest that we wanted to hit because we don't have Marilyn Monroe or Jane Mansfield with us. Right. Sylvia Miles, another example of someone, two-time Oscar nominee who was nominated for doing nudity in Midnight Cowboy, which here's a movie that wins best film with an X rating. So we sort of pick the movies and then pick who from those movies can we get. And then you sort of go into who would be cool to have that you may not expect to see. Good examples, Ken Davidian in Borat. Here's nudity in a film that everybody enjoyed, but you would never think that Ken Davidian's going to pop up in this documentary, do you? And why shouldn't he? He has a story to tell, and the nudity was fascinating because it's a different type of nudity that you see in a movie like this. And then, you're going to do, Star 80, Mariel Hemingway, because there was a lot of controversy about her nudity in that film and how she got the role. So, we kind of just go movie by movie of, who do you get? Now, Phoebe Cates, we would have loved to have interviewed. She doesn't really do many interviews anymore, but Amy Heckerling was the next best thing. So, hey, we got to get someone from Fast Times at Ridgemont. Who better than the director that directed the scenes? So between Jim and Paul and myself, we really kind of go through, hundreds and hundreds of films, and it's who would be cool, who has a story, who may you not expect to see, like a Diane Franklin from Last American Virgin, where the nudity was so important to that film and the role. And teen sex comedies you can't leave out of our documentary. Right. So we throw in a Betsy Russell and a Linda Blair and or a Diane Franklin, because nudity was so important to those films. So it's kind of hard. It's a jumbly answer, but I always look at who would be cool to see that you wouldn't expect. Like Camille Keaton from I Spit on Your Grave. Like, that was really an important film and a seminal horror film and one of the first revenge kind of porn films ever made. But nudity was a very big part of that film. So how cool would it be to hear from Camille Keaton? Because you don't see or hear from her. So I like that, film fans are going to go, oh my gosh, they got her, and oh my gosh, there's Sybil Danning, and oh, there's Erica Gavin. Wow, she has a story about Vixen. So, I think it's kind of a cool fact. Who would be really cool to see pop up that you may not expect, that doesn't have to be a Julianne Moore or a Gina Davis or Kathleen Turner. They have stories too, but who are sort of the ones you wouldn't expect that are equally as interesting and have a story?
Jim, I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously you've traced it over the years, the movies and who appears nude in them, but obviously now in 2020 times have changed, and it's crazy when you guys document this, how things evolved and it's changed over time, how has society changed. Are we maybe now at a point where, nudity in film is going to be maybe more obsolete because of the, we're obviously the Me Too movement and all that. Now it's maybe looked upon in a different way or too sexualized. Is there a concern that maybe now these scenes that could have been potentially have nudity might not have them, because maybe some directors are facing pressure not to include them? Is there a kind of a change maybe that we're experiencing now, or is this something that's going to constantly live on in the history of cinema?
Well, I think my answer will surprise you. I think we're in the golden age of celebrity nudity from the standpoint of the amount of actors and actresses who are doing nude scenes. I think back to when I launched my website, Mr. Skin, back in 1999. There were like 16 television shows now that featured nude scenes, a handful of shows across, a number of platforms. We did a study in 2019. There were 144 television shows across 36 platforms that featured nudity in 2019, female nudity, and another like 142, almost the exact same amount, that featured male nudity. It's just, with Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, we've never had so many more places where actors or actresses can do nude scenes. And it used to be movies. It was all about movies. TV was a little part of it. But now, to me, TV and movies almost the same thing. You watch an hour of Game of Thrones, you just basically watched a great movie. You know what I'm saying? The production values, the cinematography, everything. So the answer is number one, nudity is not going away. Number two, there's never been more. And in fact, you look at someone like Netflix. You go to Netflix and you're like, what's this show from Germany? Or what's this show, Hockey Girls from Spain? And you watch it, and there's the incredible amounts of nudity. They're not actors or actresses we're familiar with here in the United States, but the show's loaded with nudity. So no, nudity is not going away. In fact, there's never been more nude scenes because of all the different places we can find media.
And this is a kind of question for both of you guys. Why have we as humans, in a sense, and cinephiles, been always fascinated with nudity? You always kind of see a movie released and you always see if there's an R rating for nudity, right? Like, we don't check if it's rated for violence or something. You're kind of like naturally drawn to see, is there going to be nudity in it? It's just like a humanistic kind of thing about it, or maybe a voyeuristic thing that we have inside of us. You kind of always, in a sense, are curious about it. That's like the thing you look for in a movie, and a lot of times, and it's at times taboo. What do you guys think from your research and what you've seen over the years, that we are drawn to nudity as a society, and in a sense as humans who enjoy films, that's like a big thing for us to kind of look forward to or see if a movie contains that?
I'll just jump. I have a quick answer, and then I'll let Jim go. And Malcolm McDowell put it best. Everybody likes to look at a beautiful female body, men and women. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to male nudity, neither really wants to see that. And especially men, for the most part, going to a movie theater doesn't want to see another man naked. And that's why I think you didn't see much male nudity. But as Malcolm said, no one wants to see me naked. They want to see the beautiful actress. They don't want to see my junk, is I think his exact quote. And it was just something I think people weren't comfortable seeing, especially that so many men go to movies. And I think that why the you know, you saw so much more female nudity than male nudity because men and women both don't have a problem looking at a beautiful female body. But when it comes to a male body, it's something people really didn't want to see. But, you know, it depends on the role. I mean, if you're Richard Gere playing a gigolo, you know, there should be nudity. It's organic to who he's playing in the movie. So that shouldn't really bother people. And I think, you know, Jim could talk about it a little more. It's more acceptable now, of course, to see male nudity, and there's many more platforms to see it. And it's not as taboo anymore. I don't think there's the ooh factor, oh, a man is showing his penis on the screen. I mean, you saw Borat.
Right.
You know, that's thrown all over the place, and people are laughing and having a good time watching the theater. So it's definitely changed over the years.
Yeah, and Jim, I think the simple answer to your question is very simple. It's been happening forever, and we talk about it in the documentary, is sex sells. They said when Thomas Edison, well, we talk about, did Thomas Edison invent the
Yeah, the Lumiere brothers kind
yeah,
of.
we got to the bottom of that one, but
Yeah.
they said about 10 minutes after they invented it, they were filming nude women. So this isn't a new phenomenon, Jim. People love nudity, especially female nudity. And I think also, if we're talking celebrity nudity, I think in the modern media, and you can include this in the 60s or 70s, once you, there's even more of an allure when you know the person that's going to do the nude scene. And when someone becomes famous, be it on talk shows, be it on a television show, be it in magazines, whatever it is, or whatever area you lived in, you feel you maintain or you start to have a connection to them. And when you have that connection and then you find out that they did a nude scene, it's just a natural thing for someone to want to see that person nude. But I think the simple answer is sex sells, and it was that way when they invented movies, and it's the same way today.
You know, and want to end it off by asking you guys, obviously in America, it's always been different when it comes to nudity and sex, and as opposed to where you guys mentioned it in the film too. In Europe, it's always been more, and internationally, it's more acceptable. It's part of their culture. You turn on a TV in the midday in Europe, and you see sex and nudity, and
even in commercials.
Yeah, even commercials. It doesn't faze people, and even kids are exposed to it in a sense because it's, I don't know, it's probably the way people have been brought up in that sense that it's okay and it's a normal part of life. Do you think us as a country here, U.S., we're ever going to get to that point where nudity and sexuality is as widely accepted as it is kind of around the world and is as normal sized? Or is it always going to be sort of taboo in this country where we kind of like hide away that we look at porn and, you know, like we make it so secretive and taboo versus kind of accepting it for what it is? It's natural, it's normal, and not making it a big deal that we sort of have throughout the decades and centuries, in a sense, in this country. Do you think we're ever going to get to that point where it's going to be normal and we're not going to make it that taboo?
Well, I could tell you we're getting there. We're definitely not where they are in Europe. I think one big difference that I've seen over the last 10 years is, you know, commercial cable. You're starting to see shows like Yellowstone from the Paramount Network and shows on TNT and FX, whatever it is, that are showing nudity. Bravo, you see nudity often on those shows. So it never was that way. Your HBOs and Showtimes could have nude scenes, but not on cable with commercials. But because just shows had stations had to compete with the pay services, advertisers are more willing to spend money on shows that have nudity. So I'm not saying we're there yet, but we're definitely farther ahead than we were even 10 years ago. So maybe we're getting there.
And Jim, wouldn't you agree when you're seeing higher profile actresses, Academy Award winning actresses, the Jennifer Lawrences and the Reese Witherspoons and the even Anne Hathaways are doing more nudity now? Sure. That these are mainstream high profile actresses that maybe you know 30 years ago those type of actresses wouldn't do. But now it doesn't hurt their career at all. It hasn't hurt Julianne Moore. It hasn't hurt, Anne Hathaway, or even, again, Reese Witherspoon doing it. So some of these higher profile actresses that are doing nudity, and these are Oscar winners, and these are Oscar roles that no one's looking at as taboo anymore. Because you're seeing, these are high profile actresses, and Jennifer Lawrence has done it a few times. And people really don't seem to squirm about it.
I think it just boils down to embracing kind of the reality of us being as humans, our lusts and interests, and, the human body's fascinating, in so many ways. And it's not a bad thing. I think that's what I got from the documentary, and just in general, kind of the perspective that nudity isn't violence. It's not something bad for you, or anything like that. It's a natural part of humanity, for since the inception of us humankind. So fantastic job, fellas. I really enjoyed it. Just compelling stuff. I was geared in for 2 hours, just fascinated by, I learned about film too, in a lot of aspects too. But terrific job, Danny. Terrific job, Jim. I've been a big fan.
Thanks, Jim.
Hopefully you guys continue doing some interesting work like this, because it's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate
I
it.
want to be known as the actress who just does nudity. I didn't have the choices that women do today.
Now there's more of a system of checks and balances.
The growing Me Too movement. People are very aware of power dynamics.
What price do you put on your body, and what are you willing to get naked for?
People are afraid of sex, and maybe they're a little bit afraid of nudity too.